Chapter 11. The most famous trial in Rome. It was the most complete subjugation of any royal house on record by an enemy. Tacitus wrote that the news of the capture of the famed British warrior spread like wildfire, and 3 million people crowded the streets of Rome to view the captive king's arrival. The record stated that King Caradoc, heavily chained, bold and honorable, walked proudly with his relatives and family through the streets of Rome, following the chariot of Emperor Claudius. Rome trembled when she saw the Briton, though fast in chains. Rabbi Jesus Canubeline was clad in archdruid's white linen robes and wore the symbol of the Druidic Trinity around his forehead, a crown of mistletoe with its 3 white berries. The mistletoe entwined itself around the branches of the sacred oak tree, and to the Druid represented an earthly parallel to the spiritual incarnation of the deity in mankind. The Druidic cross was wrought in gold down the length of the back of his robe. The contemporary Roman historians expressed amazement that King Caradoc was the first captive kingly enemy not cast into the terrible Tarpeian dungeons. Here was the son of the twin brother of Judas Chrestus, the earlier leader of the hated Christians, a British warrior king, and a man who for 9 years inflicted many disastrous defeats upon the mightiest Roman army ever to march onto the field of battle, being treated with utmost respect. Neither he nor any member of the British royal family was subjected to any physical indignities while being held in custody before the trial. On the day of the commencement of the trial, Gladys refused to be separated from her father, though it was against the Roman law for a woman to enter the Senate. Voluntarily she walked by the side of King Caradoc up the marble steps into the venue in the Forum of Augustus, brave and composed like her royal father. The Senate was crowded to capacity, and here again the historians note another breach of Roman law with the presence of yet another woman. History recorded that the great Queen Agrippina sat on her throne on the far corner of the dais, a fascinated witness to the most famous trial in Roman history. She was the mother of Nero and had married Emperor Claudius in 49, although she was his niece. King Caradoc, the man who should have been the most hated as the leader of the British army, drew admiration from all sides, and he looked poised before his sworn enemy, Emperor Claudius. As the trial proceeded, King Caradoc spoke in strong, clear voice and replied to his prosecutors with words that have lived down through the ages. Tacitus recorded the British epic address to the Senate, delivered in their own language, Latin. Had my government in Britain been directed solely with a view to the preservation of my hereditary domains or the aggrandizement of my own family, I might long since have entered this city an ally, not a prisoner, nor would you have disdained for a friend a king descended from the illustrious ancestors and the dictator of many nations. My present condition, stripped of its former majesty, is as adverse to myself as it is a cause of triumph to you. What then? I was lord of men, horses, arms, wealth. What wonder if at your dictation I refuse to resign them? Does it follow that because the Roman aspire to universal dominion, every nation is to accept the vassalage they would impose? I am now in your power, betrayed not, conquered. Had I, like others, yielded without resistance, where would have been the name of Caradoc? Where is your glory? Oblivion would have been buried in the same tomb. Bid me live. I shall survive forever in history one example of Roman clemency. Never before had the Roman tribunal been addressed in such a noble manner. There and then, by order of the Claudian tribunal, King Caradoc and all members of the royal British family were immediately pardoned. When the decision was announced, the Senate cheered and applauded loudly. Queen Agrippina quickly rose, embraced King Caradoc and each member of his family, and shook hands according to British tradition. Tacitus recorded dismay at this rare display of emotion, citing it was another strange deviation from Roman custom. The only restriction imposed on the pardon of King Caradoc was that he personally remained at Rome in free custody for 7 years, and that he and any member of his family was never again to bear arms against Rome. To this King Caradoc agreed, and never once thereafter did he break his pledge. The other royal captives were free to leave Rome, but Rabbi Jesus Canubulin remained for some time. King Caradoc's eldest son, Silenius, returned immediately to Britain to rule over the kingdom of the Welsh Silurians, in the stead of his father. He oversaw the income from the family's rural estates and forwarded moneys to Rome to his father and grandfather. Emperor Claudius allowed the families full enjoyment of the revenues of their royal Silurian domains. Under Rabbi Jesus Canubulin's instruction, another son of Mary Magdalene, Cadwallader the Blessed, returned to Wales with half-sister Princess Urgane and set up an enclosure in the center of Siluria as a safe house for Christians who had fled to Britain for royal protection. While King Caradoc lived in Rome, he enjoyed all the privileges of a free man and resided with most of his family at the palatial royal household called Palatium Britannicum, the Palace of the British. Emperor Claudius gifted 20 acres of ground and detached buildings on the crest of the Esquiline Mount exclusively to King Caradoc and his family, and provided immunity to its occupants. Roman authorities were not permitted to arrest any member or guest of the Palace of the British, and the residents were allowed full use of the city provided they obeyed the civil law. For the 7 years King Caradoc lived at the palace, 52 to 59, an official law approved by the Roman Senate provided protection for him and occupants of the property. It was a Christian sanctuary in the true sense of the word, and the ensuing years would see the most famous of the New Testament figures harbored within its walls. For many years, professors and students of Roman history looked for an underlying reason why the Senate rendered its remarkable verdict. Why did the bloodthirsty Claudius not demand the customary revenge, death by brutal torture, and the cruelest means? Was it because King Caradoc was married to his daughter, Venus Julia? Did the strained intermarriage between Caradoc's sister, Princess Gladius, and the Roman aristocrat, Aulus Plautius, induce the Senate to make its decision? Historians declared to the contrary and affirmed that the strict Roman law was so embedded in the conscience of the Roman people that neither the Senate nor the emperor dared to avert traditional ruling. The reason the Claudian tribunal bestowed such generous clemency upon the royal Britons can be explained by the fact that although illegitimate, Rabbi Jesus Canubulin, the father of King Caradoc, was invested by birthright with the title of Caesar. This honor passed to Rabbi Jesus' descendants, making his whole family Roman royalty of the highest order. The New Testament provided confirmation with a direct reference to those of Caesar's household residing at the Palace of the British in Rome. A letter addressed to the family of Rabbi Jesus canonically acknowledged the descendants of the line of Caesar through Emperor Augustus and Tiberius. King Caradoc's address to the Roman Senate confirmed his personal knowledge of aristocrat breeding when he personally referred to his descent from illustrious ancestors and his hereditary domains. In his speech, he also called himself Lord of Men.